What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. This is a fan request, and I've been meaning to do a story on these guys because I definitely feel like their music is underappreciated and misunderstood. Enuff Z'Nuff would be lumped in with the hair metal party towards the end of the genre's demise in the late 80s and early 90s. And when they first popped up on the scene, the band were hailed as the next big thing, but their self-destructive tendencies torpedoed their trajectory, and bassist Chip Z Nuff would summarize the band's career by saying, "It's been 10 steps forward and 30 steps back." Stay tuned to find out the band's full story. Led by the charismatic pairing of bassist Chip Z Nuff and vocalist Donnie Vie, the band were more power pop than glam, as they would blend the styles of the Beatles and Cheap Trick for the hair metal generation. Enuff Z'Nuff's career failures were made up of every rock and roll cliche: drugs, infighting, a revolving cast of band members, bad business decisions, and death. The band's humble roots dated back to Chicago in 1983, when bassist Chip Z Nuff would hook up with a guitar player and singer named Donnie Vie, who was 5 years his junior and came from a pretty broken home. The pair would put a band together, and Chip Z Nuff would recall the band's early days, saying to Louder Sound in 2019, "The bond was unbreakable. The task at hand was, let's write some great songs. We knew we had a good sound. We were very flamboyant, very colorful. We looked great," he'd say. They would find another guitarist and drummer. They would come up with a long-form version of the name Enuff Z'Nuff before shortening it to the name we all know. The band would move into a cheap house, buy a drum machine, and start writing music. They would never play by the books by renting out a studio and recording music. Instead, as bassist Enuff Z'Nuff would tell Louder Sound, they would sneak into a studio at Lake Geneva in Wisconsin at 2 in the morning and record demos after everyone had left. The band would compile a demo called Hollywood Squares and send it to the major labels, but no one seemed interested at first. Several years into their career, they would cement their classic lineup with the addition of guitarist Derek Frigo and drummer Vic Fox in 1988. Along with their new lineup came substance abuse problems. Chip Z Nuff would tell Louder Sound, "Everyone was fairly jacked up. Found myself always trying to break up fights, trying to keep the drug dealers away from the band. I tried to make the road a little bit smoother for us. It never was. It was constantly bumpy," he'd remember. Performing around Chicago, Enuff Z'Nuff's first break came when they were approached by a local filmmaker named John McNaughton, who wanted them to include their song Fingers on It to the soundtrack of his independent film titled Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Unfortunately for the band, the movie ran into censorship issues and would remain shelved for almost 4 years. But towards the end of the 80s, the Atlantic Records owned label Atco would sign the band. Released in 1989, the band's self-titled debut album featured 2 hit songs including New Thing and their biggest hit, Fly High Michelle. Soon enough, the band was being featured on MTV, on TV shows, and their record sold a cool 500,000 copies. While there was a lot to celebrate, the band members grew frustrated with how they were labeled as a hair metal band. Frontman Donnie Vie would tell Legendary Rock interviews, "We were true power pop, and had we stayed on that path, I think we would have had more longevity, a more stable career than the whole path we later got started on. We got signed at the worst possible time in the whole metal frenzy. With a major label, there's a whole marketing angle that you can never imagine, and they're not at all into music or trained in that, but they do know how to sell something. So they're looking at us, and I think for the first time in a long time, they had no idea what to do with us or how to package us," he'd say. And bad marketing aside, the band was stunned when their label Atco gave them a bill for almost $800,000. The band signed a bad deal and weren't selling enough of their debut album to pay back their label. Not helping things was the band's growing drug dependency. While bassist Chip Z Nuff never was a heavy user, it would be the rest of the band spiraling out of control, and the band would release one more album with Atco Records, 1991's Strength. The album stalled at number 143 on the Billboard charts, but the album did get a lot of attention from the press, most notably Rolling Stone magazine, who named the group the Hot Band of the Year. With the group not making enough money and their debt growing larger by the day, they had no option than to declare bankruptcy. It was a move that other artists have done, and it allowed Enuff Z'Nuff to get out of their one-sided recording contract. Chip Z Nuff would tell Louder Sound, "Here we are making great records, touring the country. It was everything we wished for. Yet we've got no dough. On top of that, because of our problems with substance abuse, we weren't focusing on the shit that was all around us business-wise," he'd say. It would be industry mogul Clive Davis who appeared to come to the band's rescue, at least for the time being, signing the band to his label Arista Records in 1993. The night prior to the band meeting Davis to secure a record deal, frontman Donnie Vie was arrested on drug possession charges, and despite the arrest, he still made it to the meeting, with Chip Z Nuff telling Louder Sound, "He went with us, and Clive said, I don't care what it takes to get that vocal out of your brother, make it happen." Their deal with Arista would be short-lived, as they would only release one album, 1993's Animals with Human Intelligence, which didn't get a ton of support from the label, resulting in the album not being as successful as their two previous releases. But if there was one positive note, it was that the band did find success overseas in Japan. By 1994, the band was no longer with their label, and they once again found themselves in debt, while also dealing with addiction and depression. As a last Hail Mary, the band re-released their 1985 demos as the next official Enuff Z'Nuff album, and the move paid off. The album performed well enough in America and was a huge hit in Japan to turn their fortunes around. The band would soldier on for the next half a decade through a revolving cast of lineup changes and new albums through a variety of independent labels. In 1999, the band would release their album Paraphernalia that featured some fellow artists from their hometown of Chicago, including high-profile musicians like Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, Styx guitarist James Young, and Cheap Trick's Rick Nielsen. How Chip Z Nuff got Billy Corgan to appear on his album was a bit of a surprise, as the pair met at a funeral, with the bassist remembering to Louder Sound. "I met Billy at a funeral and said, 'Are you aware of my band Enuff Z'Nuff?' He goes, 'Are you kidding me? I got the Strength album in my car right now. I thought maybe if I could get some musicians in Chicago to come in and cameo on the record, it would help elevate Enuff Z'Nuff's name.' Unfortunately for the band, the record didn't get much recognition, and the band's woes continued. New record labels, lineup changes, and death soon greeted the band in the next decade. And by 2004, it appeared the classic lineup would be touring together once again, but on the eve of the tour, guitarist Eric Frigo, who left the band in 1993, died of a drug overdose. Not long after, in 2007, drummer Ricky Parent, who had been with the band for 12 years, would also lose his life to cancer. Singer Donnie Vie didn't seem far behind, as he struggled immensely with substance abuse, and his relationship with Chip Z Nuff seemed to be complicated. And despite quitting the band in 2002 to pursue a solo career, he would still record with the group. The pair would reunite in 2006 to once again release a new album and tour extensively, but Vie would once again quit the band in 2013, leaving again for good. Vie would tell Louder Sound he had a problem with being upstage, referring to Chip Z Nuff. To this day, he goes around claiming he wrote all the songs. He really didn't. He made a very minimal contribution. Chip was a great player and a star, but he wasn't an artist, he'd say. Vie, for his part, would struggle with substance abuse issues for a lot of his adult life, and it wasn't until a few years ago, after being arrested on a flight in Europe for outstanding warrant charges, that he finally decided to clean up his act. Now, there's two sides to every story, and how does Chip Z Nuff see the feud with his former singer? He would tell Love Is Pop this year that Donnie V's never been out of Enuff Z'Nuff. He left for a while in 2013, which is sad. I never envisioned an ending for my brother and I. I love him dearly. I think, in my opinion, and in other rock stars' opinion as well, he's one of the greatest singers of our generation. But basically in 2013, in Sesame Street terms, he got disillusioned by the business. And he had some health issues, and he's been battling them ever since. Please say a prayer for him. He's been playing. I know he's doing a solo record. He's been coming up with ideas, and he's got wonderful songs. He does not need me when it comes to songs, he'd say. As recently as this year, Enuff Z'Nuff would release their latest album titled Brainwashed Generation. It does appear that Chip Z Nuff and Donnie V's relationship is still deeply fractured, with Chip telling Louder Sound, "The only time we talk is when it has to do with money, and it always goes through his manager, who is his brother-in-law. I love the guy, but I don't feel like that love is reciprocated," he'd say. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. And if you guys have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section below. Take care.